Salvē, and welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at John chapter 6, not John chapter 5. I forgot to change the number. This is going to be verses 1 through 4. And I'm looking around and I don't see my rubric. Hang on a moment. Here is the rubric. Everything we look for as we go through the text. Well, let's get started. Post haec abiit Iesus trans mare Galilaeae, quod est Tiberiadis, et sequebatur eum multitudo magna quia videbant signa quae faciebat super his qui infirmabantur. Subiit ergo in montem Iesus et ibi sedebat cum discipulis suis, erat autem proximum Pascha dies festus Iudaeorum. At the very beginning of our chapter, we find this prepositional phrase, which I think is probably the same as the prepositional phrase that began chapter 5, because that's how it also worked in the Greek. Post is taking the accusative, showing time after which. Haec is going to be plural neuter for generic events, as we have seen before. So after these things, that being chapter 5. Abiit, note that since we have the two I's, that's going to mean that this is not the present stem. It would just be it, abit, present. So there's a V that is dropped out between the two, which would show that it's perfect. So third, singular, perfect, active, indicative of this irregular verb, meaning to go away from. Jesus is our subject. We don't need to parse that. And then trans, prepositional phrase, taking the accusative, showing motion across. Taking mare as its object. Galilaeae can't be part of it. It's the wrong form. But with that AE is going to be a genitive, singular, and feminine owning the sea, but this is just telling us the name of the sea. So mare plus accusative, singular, neuter, across the Sea of Galilee. Quod est, which, from qui quae quod, this is going to be nominative because of the est, singular, and neuter to match mare. Tiberiadis with the is. The two options for this are either it is the nominative singular form for the Tiberian, or it is the genitive singular form of Tiberius, having the same function as Galilaeae. Taking a look at what the Greek did, Galilee in Greek is genitive, and Tiberius is also genitive in the Greek. Greek, however, does not have the quod est. It just assumes the statement that this is the other name for it. As what we have going on here is the Roman readers, the Greek readers, wouldn't know where the Sea of Galilee is because they have all of their information coming through the Roman Empire. The locals call it the Sea of Galilee, but the Roman Emperor Tiberius renamed it, or somebody else renamed it after him, so that the Roman name is Tiberius, but the local name is Galilee. So this is just a note that John is included for the sake of his non-Jewish, non-Levant, is it Levant? The non-Levant readers. So I don't know which form that is. I didn't find it, and I'm afraid I don't have time to look it up. But I'm going to assume it's a genitive because Galilee is a genitive and Tiberius is a genitive in the Greek. Moving on into verse 2. Et, conjunction connecting the two, sequebatur, note with the bat, we have the imperfect tense, and the tur tells us that this is going to be the third person singular. This is sequor, it's a deponent verb, so imperfect, deponent, indicative. We're following him, multitudo magna, a great crowd. Note that since we have magna with the A, that should tell us what gender multitudo is. If it had been like multitudina, which is not a form that exists, then magna would tell us that it's neuter, plural. But since it is not multitudina, instead we have just the nominative form as the subject of sequebatur. As a third declension, you can't tell what gender it is automatically. Instead, you need a first, second declension adjective, which we do find here. So the A is just telling us that this is a feminine, nominative, singular, feminine. This would be multitudo, multitudinous for the genitive form. A very great crowd following him as the object of the verb, accusative, singular, masculine. Qui, because, videbant, ba, again for an imperfect NT for third person plural. because they were seeing signa. Signa here is from signum, signi. The A is going to be the accusative plural neuter form, the signs. Quae, qui, quae, quod. Quae here looks like the feminine because it is taking the accusative, nominative or accusative plural form of qui, quae, quod, and the AE of the feminine singular is identical to the neuter plural forms. But it has to be neuter because it's referring back to a neuter. And it's going to be accusative because faciebat, the singular there, is referring to Jesus doing this. Still imperfect, but this is active, so otherwise I'm going to pull this down, but note active, accusative, neuter, super prepositional phrase, taking the ablative here. You can tell from the is, from hic, haec, hoc. Is for dative or ablative plural. Prepositions don't take the dative, so that closes that off. Qui introduces another clause, so the prepositional phrase has to end here. This is going to be plural, and it's going to have to be masculine because qui is masculine. It doesn't really say for us, you have to tell from the context which he was doing, the signs which he was doing over or on those. Who are those specifically? Well, we have the qui, those, a nominative plural masculine, therefore his is also masculine. Informabantur, bont for the third person plural, tur for the passive. And yeah, it's going to be passive. It's not going to be it's not going to be a deponent. They were being sick. They were suffering the sickness. They were being infirm. Moving on into verse 3, sub-id. Note that we've got the perfect again, but this time a different prepositional prefix. Note that sub has two different meanings depending on when it's a preposition, what case, depending on it is the case. Depending on what context it is. Attached to a verb, we can take it as either way. So the two options for the preposition are underneath or on top of. So context is going to tell us which of the two are intended here. Therefore, he went under or he went onto in montem. So since this is a mountain, he's not going to be going into a mountain. Instead, there John would say a cave. Jesus means that the prepositional phrase has to close here. Accusative showing motion, singular and masculine. So he went into a mountain. The prepositions seem a bit redundant, but that's just the way that Latin works. Jesus are subject, et ibi adverb for there, showing location. Sedebat, imperfect tense again, third person singular. Cum, and we take a look at discipulis to see whether this is a cum clause or a prepositional phrase. And discipulis is a noun, and we have is of the ablative, which the preposition cum wants to take. So close that. Plural, masculine. Suis with is again, owning the disciples. So prepositional phrase closes at the end of the verse, especially since we have the verb right there. Finally, into verse 4, we have a form of sum esse fui. This is going to be the imperfect tense, third person singular. You can tell just because there's only the T there. And we have the era stem. And everything has been imperfect except for subit and abit, which is curious. Active, indicative. Now there was, or it was, proximum. This could either be a adjective or it could be a accusative forming adverb. Taking a look ahead, we have pascha dies. Dies can only be masculine or feminine, and pascha is a borrowed word, but it's going to be matching dies. I think in the Greek we have, that is not a Greek letter. There we go. Ta. Pascha. The ta tells us that in the Greek at least it's neuter. So it's possible that pascha is again neuter, in which case proximum, acting as an adjective, would be modifying the borrowed word pascha. And dies is just the restatement of what this means, just like for Galilee and Tiberias. The Greeks and the Romans aren't going to know what the Pascha is, what the Passover is, so John has to insert Deus Festus, US telling us masculine singular, nominative masculine singular, out of order, whatever. Dies being the same form, time within which, except accusative would be time within which. So just, yeah, can't be that. It would have to be accusative case to show time within which. And then eudiorum, genitive, plural, masculine, owning the festival day. But Deus Festus is a restatement of Pascha. It's not, Pascha isn't modifying Dies, nor are these two modifying that. It is its own noun. And I think it's got to be a neuter, so that the erot is connecting neuter proximum to neuter Pascha. So the Greeks and the Romans would know the concept of a feast day. And since he's got the eudiorum there, they would also know that it's a very different sort of feast day than that to which they are accustomed, which involve a lot of cultic and practices and, pagan occultic practices, because, well, it all depends on how you use the word cult. But anyway, very different from their far more immoral festivals. But let's take a look at this in its own context. After these things, Jesus went away across the Sea of Galilee, which is Tiberias, and was following him a great crowd, because they were seeing signs which he was doing over or on those who were infirm. Therefore he went up into mountain, and there Jesus was sitting with his disciples. Now Passover was near, feast day of Jews. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope taking a look at this has been helpful for you, and I hope that you have a very good Holy Trinity Monday. Wale.